Mr. Speaker, there is also the deployment of Huduma Services Center criteria as sought by the Honorable Senator Mungatana. Mr. Speaker, in response thereto, Huduma Kenya writes to ministries, departments, agencies, and counties, and the county government to deploy services in the Huduma Center service delivery platforms, but it has been observed that some MDAs and counties face challenges in deploying their services due to staffing limitations. Additionally, Huduma Kenya makes courtesy calls to ministries, departments, agencies, and counties intending to partner with them in the deployment or support of Huduma centers. For instance, in the financial year 23-24, Huduma Kenya paid courtesy calls to the Coast Region governors and wrote to the Tana River County Secretary requesting the Tana River County government to deploy services in the Tana River Huduma Center, but they are yet to respond. The service deployment is the prerogative of the ministry, department, agency, and the county government, as much as Huduma Kenya may request them to facilitate the deployment process. And Mr. Speaker, I have a next examples of the letters that Huduma Kenya has written to those various groups, the ministries, and the Coast Region, as well as the Secretary to the Tana River County Service Boards. The next question, Mr. Speaker, is to regard to the measures that the government has taken to ensure equal access to essential services in all Huduma centers across the country. The Speaker, Huduma Kenya normally signs service level agreements with the target ministries, departments, and agencies, as well as counties, to ensure they prioritize the deployment of adequate staff across all the Huduma centers. Mr. Speaker, to ensure adherence to service turnaround timelines so that the time taken by each citizen in accessing services at the Huduma centers is nearly the equal, the Cabinet Secretary in the Ministry of Public Service, my predecessor, the Honorable Moses Kuria, issued a circular to ministries, departments, and agencies emphasizing the importance of adhering to service turnaround times, and instructed all MDAs to execute service level agreements with Huduma Kenya on the 26th of March this year. The Speaker, further, the Prime Cabinet Secretary did write to all the MDAs again on the 22nd of April this year to utilize, urging them to utilize the Huduma Universal staff to ensure critical public services are conveniently within the reach of many Kenyans. The Huduma Kenya Universal staff is a Huduma Kenya staff who is trained to offer services on behalf of ministries, counties, departments, and agencies in more than one area. Currently, for example, the Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority and the Affordable Housing Program in the Ministry of Lands, Housing, Public Works, and Urban Development utilize the Huduma Universal staff to offer their service in our Huduma centers. In order to support customer access to digitalized online government services, Mr. Speaker, on 30th of June 2023, His Excellency the President launched the e-Citizen platform that has made available over 17,000 government services to the citizens. Huduma Kenya is complementing this agenda by providing in-person and assisted support to citizens who need help accessing these services through the 57 Huduma Kenya cyber cafes in all our Huduma centers. These are supporting the access to public services to the digitally disadvantaged, persons living with disabilities, the elderly, and any other Kenyan that requires support to access government e-services. MDAs have since trained the Tana River Center Cyber Cafe staff to offer end-to-end online services. The Speaker, with regard to devolution of services, as this is important, it's one of the key core functions of this House, the recently launched Kenya Vision 2030 MTA and the MTP4 plan envisages the setup of Huduma digital centers in the 290 constituencies. To actualize Huduma Kenya, Huduma Kenya has partnered with the members of the National Assembly through a co-funding model where members use their national government CDF fund for the construction of the centers. Huduma Kenya Secretariat operationalizes the centers by branding, providing ICT infrastructure, furniture, deploying services and management of the day-to-day operations of the Huduma Center. The Speaker, it is a well-known fact that recently, indeed I think last week, the High Court did give some decision with regard to the National Government Constituency Development Fund about its continued existence in light of constitutional provisions relating to devolution and other aspects on separation of powers. But Mr. Speaker, Huduma Kenya has operationalized 4 Huduma centers, that is in Marimanti, Mara, Kathwana, those are in Tharaka Nithi County, and Gatundu North, and in the financial year 24-25 is planning to operationalize 7 Huduma centers in the following constituencies: Ronyenjes, Molo, Malindi, Kaloleni, Ganze, Maua, and Ikolomani. The following members of Parliament have also commenced the process of establishing Huduma centers in their respective constituencies, namely Sotik, Lafe, Madera South, Dadaab, Kinango, Kapenguria, Soy, Mathare, Funyula, Teso South, Bura, Rabai, Kitui East, Embakasi Central, Tetu, Kipipiri, Likuyani, and Kajiado South. Huduma Kenya, the Speaker, handles government customer queries through the Huduma Contact Center, which provides telecounsel through a single dialing prefix 1919. Honorable Speaker, Huduma Kenya is on a scheduled basis holds Huduma Mashinani outreach programs. Huduma Center extends services to remote and far-flung areas, improving access for citizens with limited resources. Final question, the Speaker. With regard to plans to renovate Hola Huduma Center, which is in a dilapidated state, as well as upgrade its services. The Speaker, in the financial year 23-24, Huduma Center Tana River Hola undertook routine maintenance, which included tile repairs for the entire center. And the Speaker, we've annexed a photograph showing how the center looked like before the repairs were undertaken, and now how it looks like currently. Further, the following equipments were installed at the center to enhance security: a walk-through scanning machine, a CCTV security cameras and a control room, biometric access control system, and an alarm system. The Speaker, we've annexed again photographs showing all those all that infrastructure that was installed. In the financial year 24-25, and based on availability of budget, the following additional works are planned to be undertaken at the Hola Huduma Kenya Center. That is Huduma Center rebranding, and B, completion of the tiling tiles repairs, which is at 5%, the balance. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, once again, I wish to thank you for this opportunity to appear before the senators to respond to the questions raised by the Honorable Senator Danson Mungatana. I take this opportunity to request you and the Honorable Senators to urge county governments to deploy county services in Huduma centers across the country. The Ministry of Public Service and Human Capital Development looks forward to continued partnership with the Senate and will continue undertaking its mandate of guiding the service and creating the enabling work environment for efficient and effective service delivery to all citizens. I submit, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, CS. Honorable Mungatana, pursuant to Standing Order 51C7A, you may ask 2 supplementary questions. And supplementary questions are exactly that. They must flow from the primary question. You may proceed.
Bwana Spika, kwanza namshukuru sana waziri wetu wa public service kwa kufika kuja kujibu maswali haya ya Tana River. Bwana Spika, mimi nilikuwa kwanza nataka kumuomba spika wetu, sio spika siku hizi ni waziri wetu, atembee Tana River, asisikize vile maafisa wake wanamwambia pale. Hii Huduma Center iko katika barabara kubwa ambayo inaingia county headquarters yetu ya Tana River. Ukipita fence imeanguka, hakuna gate ndani. Ukiangalia hizo tiles wamekwambia kumebaki 5%, hakuna 5% imebaki. Wewe ndio uone mwenyewe. Hakuna maji ndani ya hiyo Huduma Center. Watu wanasumbuka, Bwana Speaker. Na pia ukiangalia, Bwana Speaker, haujataja, Bwana Waziri, haujataja ni pesa ngapi ambazo zimewekwa kwa mwaka huu ya kumalizia kazi za renovation. Hapo umetaja kwamba unataka kufanya rebranding. Sasa rebranding na fence imeanguka, hakuna hata usalama pale. Rebranding, watu wanakupeleka vibaya, Bwana Speaker, Bwana Waziri. Sisi tunakuomba uje mwenyewe na utueleze ukisimama ni pesa ngapi. Ola inaleta pesa na watu pale wanapeleka mambo zao. Ni pesa ngapi ambazo umeweka fence isimame mahali hiyo, yani ile aibu ya serikali kuu iondoke pale? Ni pesa ngapi? Swali langu la pili, Bwana Waziri. Bwana Waziri, hapa umesema eti kuna interns walikuwa wanatakikana, na Tana River County interns hawakuomba nafasi hizo. Yani Bwana Speaker, mimi nilikuwa nataka waziri atueleze ni kwa nini swala muhimu na services muhimu, huduma muhimu kama huduma ya pesa za Uwezo Fund haziko kwa hiyo Huduma Center yetu. Sasa watu wangejuaje kuapply kuwa interns katika hii huduma yako, hii Huduma Center, kama watu hawapewi hii service? Tena ingine ambayo haiko ni hii Youth Development Enterprise Fund, Bwana Waziri, haipo. Mimi nilikuwa na kuomba sana, wajua hapa Nairobi na sehemu za town, hizo sehemu mtu akikosa hapa ataenda pale atajisaidia, lakini kule nje kama Tana River, na kuomba utafutie pesa za kutosha, ututembelee, ujionee. Mimi sisemi maneno ya story, na kuomba waziri uje kwetu, si mbali. Ukiingia ukisema tutaenda na tutarudi hata kesho, uone tu na uangalie hali zilivyo, na kuomba utupatie Yani swali mba utusaidie na upgradie hiyo sehemu yetu. Je, utakuja lini? Umeweka pesa ngapi? Na utatu-upgradea lini Hola Huduma Center? Asante Bwana Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Mungatana. I've given you latitude, but there is no word like upgrade. I don't think we have such a word somewhere. But anyway, I will allow the CS to proceed to respond to those two questions. The first question, Honorable CS, is how much have you set aside this financial year for purposes of completing that Huduma Center, or rather completing the renovations? And the second question is, considering the remoteness of Tana River County, would you give them you called it preferential treatment? Those are the two questions. You may proceed to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I still want to thank the Honorable Mungatana for raising the issues that is raised in the supplementary question. First, I wish to confirm that I'm ready to pay a visit to Hola on a priority basis to see for myself the issues that the Honorable Mungatana has raised. But the Speaker, the issue about the fence and where the center is near a road is well known to both the ministry and Huduma Kenya. But what is to be done, and which is what I've said, is that the fencing is to be done. And Mr. Speaker, with regard to the percentage of what has not been done, I have attached photographs which I believe, Mr. Speaker, both the Honorable Mungatana and myself can sit down and agree on the percentages. But what is important, Mr. Speaker, is that it is in the plans by Huduma Kenya to do the fence, because it's important, and also to do the rebranding. Those are important. Unfortunately, the Speaker, as is well known to this House, and indeed to many Kenyans, development money in the ministry was, in light of the austerity measures adopted by the country, was removed 100%. And it's for that reason that in my answer, I've said that we are planning to request for budgetary support. We cannot say how much money, because the Speaker, there is zero development budget in our ministry with regard to the functioning of Huduma centers. The Speaker, I am informed that the issue of availability of water at the Hola Center is one that is affected by sometimes the intermittent nature by which a water supply at the center is. But again, the Huduma Kenya is willing, as long as we get budgetary provision, to handle. Indeed, as raised by the Honorable Senator Mungatana, it will be a sad occasion that citizens will go for services and they have no places where they can go to relieve themselves, and also provision of water. The model that we are adopting is one that is to provide convenience to citizens when they go for services at our Huduma centers. With regard to the issue of interns, Mr. Speaker, it is a matter that, unfortunately, though falling at the policy level within the ministry, was handled by the Constitutional Commission, Public Service Commission, established, I'm sure the House fully appreciates, under Article 233, and whose functions are clearly provided for in Article 234. It's the one that began the internship program. They advertise. The information that they have given me is that they advertise for everybody in the country to apply. And then deployment. Deployment is on the basis of various ministries, departments, and agencies. In this case, the Weso Fund agency did not avail any chance to the interns, even though there were some who are not from Tana River. But because of the convenience of deploying people to areas which make sense to them, unfortunately, none was deployed to the Hola Huduma Kenya Center. It's a matter that I will take up with the Public Service Commission so that in the very near future, because they are doing some more internship program, we can get some people trained or attached to this particular center in view of the critical role that the centers play and the issues raised by the Honorable Mungatana with regard to distances citizens from Tana River and Hola in particular have to travel to go and obtain government services in other places far away from Tana River County. Indeed, the Speaker, as I conclude, I want to assure the Honorable Mungatana that we as a ministry, through those various interventions, like one I've said, the letters written by the Prime Cabinet Secretary, and also the intervention by the Head of Public Service, we intend to ensure as many government agencies do deploy personnel or avail personnel to be trained to over some of the front-end services that many of these departments and agencies offer, so that we can't get this kind of situation like the NTSA, people in Hola having to really struggle to travel long distances. And I'm sure, the Speaker, I am aware that they have to travel very far because there is no Huduma Center even in Malindi. Because the Member of Parliament for Malindi has just this month approached me with a view to assisting her set up a Huduma Center in Malindi. So I can appreciate the distances that the people of Tana River have to travel to get these kind of services. And the reason why Huduma Kenya Services was established way back in 2013 and effected in 2014 was to try and bring some of the government services closer to the people. And for that reason, that so many services we are told are being offered on the e-citizen platform and digitally through other forms, and it's unfair that we can have a situation in which the people of Tana River cannot benefit from such government services. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Muma.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Welcome, CS, to the Senate. CS, listening to you, I don't know how to ask the question, but I'll ask. You seem to be saying you have zero budget to implement matters Huduma. You seem to be begging MPs and counties and state departments to uptake or to facilitate the Huduma services. So my question is this. Is it we have 5 days to go before we move from NHIF to the SHA. Only 1.2 million Kenyans have registered with the new system against 14 million registered with NHIF. Is your ministry and Huduma services being utilized to fast track the transition of all of those who have paid and are members of NHIF to the SHA arrangement in order for us to avert any crisis in our health facilities come 1st October 2024?
Senator Mbugua. CS, just note the questions so that you can be able to respond to a number of them, as opposed to responding to one and then you listen to the other.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the issue of access for essential services, I would like the Cabinet Secretary to specifically state to this House the measures which have been taken to ensure universal access for persons with disabilities, and tell this House how many of these Huduma centers have sign language interpreters for people who deserve that service. Thank you.
Senator Wambua.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my question relates to the operations of Huduma centers, and I would want to know from the CS whether there is a common service charter for all the Huduma centers across the country, or we have different service charters for different Huduma centers. Mr. Speaker, just a small one. Is it not a requirement then that all essential government services are available in all Huduma centers? Because I'm hearing the CS saying is appealing to government departments to second staff to the Ola Huduma Center. Is it not a requirement that all essential government services should be available in every Huduma Center? I thank you, Speaker.
Senator Mundigi.
Asante Bwana Spika, swali langu kwa waziri wa PSC ni kuwa kumekuwa na malalamishi katika kaunti 47 mambo ya kuajiri watu katika civil department. Ningetaka kujua Bwana waziri, ulianza kazi nzuri, utafanya namna gani ndio kila kaunti iwe ikisherekea keki ya Kenya mzima, kwa sababu kumekuwa na shinda mambo ya vijana wetu wale wamesoma, na pia mambo ya intern. Kaunti nyingi imekuwa na shinda kwa sababu wale watu wao kwa department wakiajiri watu wafanye balancing, na sasa wewe ni waziri mpya, utasaidia namna gani? Hiyo ingine, watu wengi wamepitisha miaka 60 na wanjaashishwa kazi, na tunajua vijana wetu wanataka kazi, na sasa utasaidia namna gani ndio kila kaunti iweze kusherekea upande wa kazi? Asante Bwana Speaker.
Senator Gataya Mofaya.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. My question is very simple to the CS, Public Service. Honorable CS, you know Huduma Kenya Service is not about buildings. I'm happy that recently His Excellency the President was able to launch about 3 Huduma centers in the County, Honorable CS, and you are aware. But these Huduma centers, Honorable CS, are skeleton. They are just houses with no staff. You can go to Barimanti, you will not find even a single staff serving citizens in terms of the National Hospital Insurance Fund. No staff of pension staff, of pensioners for that matter, no staff for Kenya KRA. There are no registration biometrics, no NTSA. So these are Huduma centers, Honorable CS, by names. So what is your minister doing to make sure that the core services that are required to be rendered to these Huduma centers are installed? Because we have Huduma Center in Marimanti, which just a skeleton of itself. Huduma Center in Mara, which is beautifully done, but it's just a shell. Then Huduma Center in Kadwana, the county headquarters for Tharaka Nithi County, which is just there by its name. So what is it that we are doing to make sure that these facilities get to some people who is intended to serve? What is your minister doing to make sure that people get services in this regard? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Senator Boni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there's been a lot of conflicting information around costs. Could the minister clarify the cost of acquiring the following documents? 1, a new national identity card, renewal of the national card, acquisition of a birth certificate, acquisition of a passport, and renewal of a passport. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable CS, you may now proceed to respond.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I want to really thank honorable senators who've raised quite a number of pertinent issues relating to the functioning of our Huduma Center. The Speaker, I want to agree with Senator Catherine Muma. I believe, Speaker, I believe I know most of the senators by their names. On the question of migration from NHIF into the SHA/SHIF is a matter that has exercised the minds of many people in government. And indeed, Mr. Speaker, since I think 2 weeks ago, I have been appalled by the information that has been coming through that only a paltry 1.2 million Kenyans have so far registered. I think it's a matter that should worry everybody who really is intent on seeing the success of the rolling out of the universal health coverage, if it has to really be seen to cover the entire country, and as many people as it is intended to. But Mr. Speaker, and I think my response to this question would is likely to answer some other question that has been raised maybe by some other senators. The Speaker, we at Huduma Center, or indeed at the ministry, cannot or do not have the wherewithal to compel the ministries, other ministries, departments, agencies, and counties to utilize the services offered by Huduma Kenya in their centers. And indeed, it is in that regard that I did indicate the efforts that have been made by my predecessor in March of this year, by the Prime Cabinet Secretary in April 22nd this year, trying to appeal to ministries, departments, and agencies to kindly utilize these services. We, at the ministry, have offered to hold training sessions whereby we can have the people we are calling universal staffers, will be a person who is capable of offering services, frontal services, requiring, say, for instance, renewal of driving licenses, birth certificates, certificates of good conduct, and several of those services. We can have one person deal with 5 to even 10 services. But the Speaker, as we all know, change moves very slowly. It happens very slowly. So we are seeing this in ministries, departments, and agencies, and indeed even as well as in counties. But as of today, our CEO at the Huduma Kenya Secretariat has written to the Social Health Authority asking them to utilize the services available at the Huduma centers to register more Kenyans into the SHIF. That will be my response, Mr. Speaker, to the question raised with, by the Honorable Senator Muma, with whom I agree. Indeed, the issues he has pointed out is quite true. With regard to the issue of universal access raised by Senator Mbugua, indeed, it is true that we would require a lot of lead time, because it's only this year that we have seen a lot of efforts being made, but we continue appealing to ministries and departments and agencies. We at Huduma Kenya will be ready to deploy those people, specially or variously abled. Maybe people who may need braille services, people who may need sign language services at our Huduma centers. But of course, it's a process that takes time, because as we are saying, ministries and departments are not rolling out as fast as we would have expected. But also, I want to agree that there is need for us to begin, even if it is just here in Nairobi, because I want to admit, we don't have people offering those kind of services. But it is a desire of Huduma Kenya to have such services also available in some of our centers, depending on need. Again, there will be need to do some needs assessment. The Speaker, there is a question raised by the Honorable Senator Kio Wambua, the distinguished senator for Kitui, with regard to service charters. I want to say that there is an element of commonness, just like we have in MOUs. As a service charter is likely to, one service charter is likely to differ just slightly depending on the kind of service that a particular MDA, ministry or department, or indeed a county wishes to offer. But generally, they are common. In fact, I have a model one here, which are annexed as in the responses that I filed to the House. It's annexed as Annex 1, which was the one, the Tana River Huduma Center full service delivery charter. But it will be modified depending on the kind of service that an MDA or a ministry would be offering. The Speaker, the Senator for Embu, Honorable Chandra Kamundigi, Munyi Mundigi, I did indicate, Mr. Speaker, that I know. But the Honorable Mundigi took me to a different area. It's about employment and fairness in recruitment. The Speaker, this ministry, the Ministry of Public Service and Human Capital Development, is not involved in employment or recruitment into the public service. However, that's a function, a constitutional function given to the Public Service Commission. As you well know, I'm sure the House is well familiar with the provisions of Article 234. More particularly, if you read Clause 2, it is their responsibility to employ. And if you go to clause 2, you go to even paragraph A, Roman 2, you may see the functions of the Public Service Commission. And I'm sure the Honorable Senator for Kakamega is likely to expound further on what is provided in that Article 234, Clause 2, Paragraph A, Roman 2. It's not a function of the ministry, it's a function of the Public Service Commission, but they are to be guided, as we all know, by the requirements placed in Article 232 on values in public service, and also as contained more particularly in the Public Service Commission Act of 2017. The Speaker, the Senator for Tharaka Nithi, the Honorable Mofire, aka Kataya, spoke about the nature of skeleton staff at Marimanti, which is near his village, Mara constituency, and Kathwana in Chukagamba Ng'ombe. It is true, Mr. Speaker, that the staff there are skeleton, but as you all know, these are the centers that were just opened or operationalized, actually this financial year, soon after the debacle of the Finance Bill 2024, which we are all quite alive to, and we know what happened. So it is true indeed that the staff in those 3 Huduma centers are, skeletal, but we will be beefing them. We will add more staff as we move on. The Speaker, finally, a question by my good friend, the indomitable Senator for Kakamega, with regard to costs. Mr. Speaker, we at the Huduma Center may not be able to speak authoritatively on the question of how much it costs to apply for a new birth certificate, or even to renew passports, and all these other certificates, because the issue of the costs is domiciled in the Ministry of Interior with regard to those ones, but with regard to the issue of birth certificate, driving licenses, that is within the NTSA, which falls under the Ministry of Transport, Roads and Transports, Mr. Speaker. I hope, Mr. Speaker, I've been able to respond to the various supplementary questions.
Thank you, Honorable CS. We will now take the final round. Honorable Mutinda Tabitha.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I wanted to start by giving my remarks to the CS, congratulating him for his new position and role. And I quickly wanted to ask Bwana Waziri, do you have an Huduma number? Because from the question that Senator Boni had even asked in terms of these costs that are in place, since I have an Huduma number, when it came to place, it was to be able to help sort a lot of identifications in terms of having a driving license, having an ID card, having an SSF number, NHIF, and all those being consolidated in one card, which then cuts the cost of acquiring all these documents, and also helping the government have one data that comprises of all the information for all the Kenyans. So what's your take as far as the Huduma number issue is concerned? What's your futuristic strategic focus as far as this number is in place in this country? Because definitely funds were used. So what's your take, Bwana Waziri? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kibwana.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Bwana Waziri, karibu sana. Sorry, I have to speak English, Mr. Speaker. Bwana CS, I was just wondering, how would you sustain motivating the staff? Because whenever you go to Huduma Center, you realize there's, the quality service is quite down. The systems are broken down. Delay at the counters, inadequate staff. So how do you plan to motivate the staff so that they can work better? At times you even find that they are unable to reconcile all the different services that are supposed to be done. Just motivation of staff. Thank you, Bwana CS and Mr. Speaker.
Senate Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to also join my colleagues who are congratulating the CS on his new position. I know the CS very well. He was my chairman for 5 years at the PSC, so I worked with him very closely and enjoyed that time working with him. But more curiously for me, though, is to see the Speaker of the National Assembly before what looks like a dock before the Senate, Mr. Speaker, much as he's coming to answer questions. I know that is not a scene he forethought during his years in the National Assembly, but I do welcome the CS quite well. Mr. Speaker, I want to know from the Cabinet Secretary whether at his ministry he has sight or knows the exact number of public servants we have, at least in the executive, Mr. Speaker, in this republic, because I know one of the most contested costs to the exchequer. We are living in this very difficult fiscal strain season, Mr. Speaker, and we are being asked to make savings everywhere. And one of the areas that has been pointed out as areas where this administration must seriously improve on is on the cost that Kenyans are having to bear to pay public servants. So it would be important to know what is the number and whether in his mind he think they are more than we need, they are less than we need, and if there is, Mr. Speaker, anything being done to ensure that as a country we do not take more than a fair share of public servants needed to deliver service and not overburden Kenyans, Mr. Speaker, because we are paying too much in salaries to public servants at the expense of the millions of taxpayers who pay taxes. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Beatrice Akinyi.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable CS, although my questions are touching on sectorial issues, but as the CS Public Service and in charge of human capital development, I would like to know what your input would be as a ministry on the various challenges that the public sector in this country are facing. We have a case of the health sector, the issues of intern doctors. We have lecturers that have been on the street.
Honorable Senator, just let me guide you.
Yes.
You are rising to ask a supplementary question. It must be related to the primary question.
Yes, Speaker.
Although I gave some kind of leeway to Senator Alexander Mundigi, who certainly veered off, because any question that is not related to Huduma Center then cannot be a supplementary question.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Other the Huduma Center services, there are other public sector services. What is just your input as a ministry on the other sectors, public sector challenges, and what would be your take on the challenges that the public sector is going through? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Senator Morango.
Asante sana, Mstahiki Spika. Swali langu ingekuwa kuuliza waziri, na kwanza nimpe kongole kwa kupata nafasi ya kuwa waziri katika serikali ya Kenya Kwanza. Kwa sababu kuna upungufu wa wafanyikazi sana sana katika huduma center nyingi. Unafanya nini ama unakusudia kufanya nini kuhakikisha kwamba kuna wafanyakazi wa kutosha na kuhakikisha kwamba hakuna foreni katika kupata huduma ambazo inatafutwa sana na wakeza katika huduma center? Asante, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kavindo Agnes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity. But I want to start by congratulating Honorable CS in his new position. Mr. Speaker, my question is, how does the CS plan to build more Huduma centers? Because like in Machakos, when one is traveling from Masinga to come to Machakos town, sub-county, from Masinga sub-county to Machakos sub-county, it costs them a lot of money just to come and pick something that they should get from Masinga. How do you plan to spread across the counties the Huduma centers so that you move the services near to the people so that you can serve them from very near? And like other senators, the problem of understaffing in the Huduma centers. Thank you.
Senator Muturi Murungi.
Honorable Speaker, I also want to congratulate the CS for public service, and also to give my credentials how I know him, as the Majority Leader has put it. I've worked under him in the National Assembly for 10 years, together with Senator Manzo, and more importantly, I participated to elect him twice as my Speaker. So maybe when time comes, CS Muturi, you come to Meru to do something for me there, especially in 2027, God willing. So, Mr. CS, Huduma Centers is a novel idea which was started by the government of Kenya. Now that we are steering, we are not sure. As I was driving to this office, Mr. CS, I heard you give so many Huduma centers that might be supported by NGCDF. And I also heard you mention that we have, there was a ruling from the High Court about the constitutionality of the NGCDF. Now that all these constituencies and approached you, that you do collabo with them, and noting that also you have mentioned that you have no development budget. What maybe might your ministry do to ensure that all these constituencies that you mentioned and others that are in the pipeline also get money maybe through the exchequer, maybe in the next financial year also, so that you can have these services, especially in Meru, where I come from. South Imenti constituency, Central Imenti, Bole, Tigania West, Tigania East, Egembe Central, Egembe South, Egembe North. Actually, South, I heard you mention that Imowa will be getting one. So what will your ministry do to have these Huduma centers accomplished? Now, noting that NGCDF might be a thing of the past, even though I don't know the National Assembly, their strategy to ensure that this fund is restored back. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Manzo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me take this opportunity to congratulate the Honorable Muturi, former Speaker of the National Assembly, for the appointment as a Cabinet Secretary, and go on to ask about the people with disabilities in the Huduma centers. There has been an issue that not as many has been hired, and if any, they work at the back office. What are you going to do to make sure that the people with disabilities first are well represented, well taken care of, and are able to participate in nation building and working within the Huduma centers? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable CS, you may now proceed to respond.